The piercing scream shattered the peaceful suburban morning, echoing across perfectly trimmed hedges and pristine driveways. Sarah Mitchell dropped her coffee mug, barely registering the ceramic shards exploding across her designer kitchen floor as she sprinted toward the backyard. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she caught a glimpse of small arms thrashing in the pool's crystal-clear water. Her 7-year-old son, Tommy, had somehow slipped past the supposedly child-proof gate. And now time seemed to freeze as she watched him struggle against the water's merciless grip. Her legs felt like lead, her throat constricted with terror, and memories she'd spent years burying came rushing back, paralyzing her at the threshold of the patio door. In that same moment, a scraggly brown dog that had been scavenging in the nearby alley heard the commotion. Without hesitation, the dog bounded over the Mitchell's fence, its powerful legs propelling it forward with single-minded determination. The animal's matted fur was a testament to countless nights spent on the streets, and fresh scars spoke of recent battles for survival. But there was something in its eyes, a fierce intelligence and unwavering purpose. As it assessed the situation in mere seconds, the dog's muscles coiled like springs, and before anyone could react, it launched itself into the pool with explosive force, creating a splash that momentarily obscured both rescuer and victim from view. David Mitchell had just pulled into the driveway, his mind still occupied with the morning's board meeting. When he heard his wife's screams, he abandoned his briefcase on the front lawn and ran toward the backyard, his Italian leather shoes slipping on the dewy grass. The scene that greeted him would be forever etched in his memory. His wife frozen in terror at the patio door, his son's small body being pulled through the water by a bedraggled stray dog, and the morning sun casting an almost ethereal glow over the entire tableau. Something inside him broke at that moment, the carefully constructed facade of the successful businessman crumbling in the face of his own helplessness. The dog's powerful strokes cut through the water, pulling Tommy toward the shallow end where concrete steps offered escape. The boy's small fingers clutched desperately at the dog's fur, his face a mask of fear and confusion as water streamed from his nose and mouth. The stray showed remarkable intelligence, positioning itself to keep Tommy's head above water while steering them both to safety. As they reached the steps, the dog gently pushed the boy upward, ensuring he could grab the metal handrail before finally releasing its gentle but firm grip on Tommy's shirt collar. The entire rescue had taken less than a minute, but it felt like an eternity to everyone watching. What happened next would shake the Mitchell family to its core and set in motion a chain of events that none of them could have predicted, as Tommy lay coughing on the warm concrete, surrounded by his parents who had finally broken free from their paralysis. The stray dog stood quietly at the pool's edge, water dripping from its matted fur. Nobody noticed the small metal tag half buried in the dog's thick coat, nor the way it studied the family with an almost human understanding. And certainly, no one could have guessed that this seemingly random act of heroism would unravel decades of carefully guarded secrets, forcing 3 generations of Mitchells to confront truths they'd spent a lifetime trying to forget. The emergency room buzzed with activity as doctors checked Tommy's vital signs, their practiced movements a stark contrast to the chaos of emotions swirling through the waiting area. Sarah Mitchell sat rigid in an uncomfortable plastic chair, her designer outfit still damp from holding her son, while David paced restlessly, making call after call to reschedule his day. The stray dog, now temporarily tethered to a bike rack outside the hospital entrance per regulations, hadn't made a sound since their arrival. Several nurses had already commented on its unusually calm demeanor, noting how it seemed to track everyone entering and leaving the emergency room doors with intelligent, watchful eyes. Tommy's attending physician, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, emerged from the examination room with a reassuring smile, but her eyes held a hint of concern that both parents immediately noticed. She explained that while Tommy would recover fully from the near drowning, she was troubled by several fading bruises she'd discovered during her examination, bruises that suggested previous accidents. Sarah felt her chest tighten as the doctor gently inquired about Tommy's daily supervision and swimming abilities. David stepped forward, his corporate defense mechanisms kicking in as he explained about their busy schedules and the recent dismissal of their longtime nanny due to inappropriate behavior around Tommy. Outside in the hospital parking lot, local news vans began arriving, drawn by reports of the dramatic rescue. The story of a stray dog saving a wealthy executive's son had already caught fire on social media. With amateur videos of the aftermath going viral, a young reporter, Jessica Chen, watched the footage on her phone with particular interest, her journalist's instincts telling her there was more to this story than a simple rescue. She noticed details others had missed: the mother's paralysis during the crisis, the father's delayed reaction, and most intriguingly, the dog's oddly familiar behavior pattern back in the examination room. Tommy sat quietly on the paper-covered bed, his small hands clutching a cup of hot chocolate. A kind nurse had smuggled in when Dr. Rodriguez asked him about swimming lessons. His eyes darted nervously to the door, where his parents' shadows were visible through the frosted glass. His whispered response about not being allowed near water and mommy's rules caused the doctor to make several careful notes in his file. She noticed how the boy seemed to relax only when talking about the dog, his face lighting up as he described how the animal had guided him to safety. With what felt like practiced expertise, Sarah caught snippets of Tommy's conversation with the doctor through the door, each word hitting her like a physical blow. Memories she'd suppressed for 25 years began surfacing: the sound of splashing water, desperate screams, and the weight of responsibility too heavy for a 12-year-old to bear. Her hand unconsciously moved to the locket she always wore, fingers tracing the worn edges of the silver heart that contained a faded photograph of two young girls smiling by a lake. David watched his wife's familiar, nervous gesture with growing unease, recognizing the signs of what he'd privately termed her water anxiety. But for the first time, he began to wonder about its true origin. The drive home from the hospital was heavy with unspoken tensions, broken only by Tommy's occasional questions about the dog sitting calmly in the back seat. David had surprised everyone by insisting the stray come home with them, overriding Sarah's protests with uncharacteristic firmness. Through the rearview mirror, he watched his son lean against the dog's damp fur, whispering secrets that made the animal's ears twitch with attention. There was something unsettling about the way the dog held itself, an awareness that seemed out of place in a common stray. When they stopped at traffic lights, David caught himself studying its reflection, trying to shake off a nagging sense of recognition that he couldn't quite place. Sarah's hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly, as memories continued to surface unbidden. The locket around her neck felt heavier than usual, its contents burning against her skin like a brand of guilt. 25 years ago, another child had gone into the water. Her sister Emma, whose fate had been sealed by a moment's inattention. The same paralysis that had gripped her this morning had rooted her to the spot then, forcing her to watch helplessly as the lake claimed her sister. The official report had called it a tragic accident, but Sarah knew better. She'd carried the weight of that secret through therapy, through marriage, through motherhood, letting it shape every decision about Tommy's upbringing. Inside their sprawling colonial home, Jessica Chen sat in the Mitchells' pristine living room, having somehow convinced the housekeeper to let her wait for the family's return. The ambitious young reporter had spent the last hour examining the family photos on display, noting the careful curation of their presentation. Every image showed the perfect family: successful father, elegant mother, cherubic son. But it was what was missing that intrigued her. No swimming photos, no beach vacations, no water-related activities of any kind. Her research had uncovered something else. 25 years ago, in a small town 3 states away, another family had lost a child to drowning, and the surviving sister had vanished from public record shortly after. The stray dog moved through the house with peculiar familiarity, its nails clicking purposefully against the hardwood floors as it investigated each room. When it reached the study, it paused at a particular bookshelf, nose twitching at a leather-bound album partially hidden behind newer books. David, following close behind, felt his breath catch as he recognized the album, one he'd thought Sarah had destroyed years ago. The dog's intense focus on that specific spot seemed far too deliberate to be coincidence, and a cold tendril of uncertainty began to wind its way through his carefully ordered world. He found himself reaching for the album with trembling hands, already dreading what he might find inside. Tommy watched the adults from the hallway, his young mind piecing together fragments of understanding. He'd seen the way the dog had swum with such precision, just like the service dogs he'd watched training at the park. He remembered the stories his mother used to tell about growing up near a lake, stories that had abruptly stopped when he'd asked about her childhood photos. And now, as he observed his father's reaction to whatever he'd found in the old album, Tommy began to suspect that their mysterious rescuer might not be a stray at all, but rather a messenger from a past his parents had tried desperately to forget. David sat alone in his study late into the night, the leather album open on his desk beneath a single desk lamp. The dog, which Tommy had started calling Hero, lay watchfully by the door, its eyes never leaving the album's yellowed pages. Photographs David hadn't seen in decades spread before him, told a story he'd tried to forget. A younger Sarah standing with her sister Emma by a lake, both wearing matching uniforms from the canine training facility their parents had run. Another photo showed Emma with a German shepherd that looked remarkably similar to Hero. Though that dog had been black and tan rather than brown, his hands trembled as he reached the newspaper clipping he'd been avoiding. Local girl drowns. Service dog missing after lake tragedy. Sarah stood in the doorway of Tommy's room, watching her son sleep peacefully for the first time in months. The nightmares that had plagued him since their former nanny's dismissal seemed to have subsided with Hero's presence. She touched her locket unconsciously, remembering the day Emma had given it to her, just hours before the accident. Inside, beyond the photo everyone knew about, was a tiny key she'd never used. Its purpose a final secret her sister had taken to her grave. The weight of unspoken truths pressed down on her, as she recalled Emma's last words about ensuring someone would always watch over them, words that had seemed like typical teenage dramatics at the time, but now took on a more haunting significance. Jessica Chen sat in her small apartment, surrounded by papers and old microfiche printouts. Her investigation had led her to discover that the canine training facility once run by Sarah's parents had specialized in an experimental program, breeding dogs with exceptional intelligence and protective instincts. The facility had closed immediately after Emma's death, and all records of their breeding program had vanished. But most intriguingly, she'd found a series of recent incidents across the country. Children saved from various accidents by mysterious brown dogs that disappeared shortly after their heroic acts. The timestamps of these rescues formed a clear path, leading directly to the Mitchells' doorstep. Tommy lay awake in his bed, pretending to sleep. Whenever his mother checked on him, Hero had slipped into his room silently, and now lay beside the bed with one eye open, maintaining its vigilant watch. The boy's hand dangled down, fingers buried in the dog's thick fur, finding comfort in its solid presence. In the dark, he whispered questions about the old photo he'd found hidden in his mother's desk drawer, the one showing two girls and a dog by a lake. Hero's ears would twitch at certain words, especially when Tommy mentioned his aunt's name, and the boy couldn't shake the feeling that the dog understood far more than it should. Every so often, Hero would turn to look at Tommy's closet, where the boy had hidden something he'd found attached to the dog's collar earlier, a worn leather pouch containing what looked like old training tags and a small key. Sarah's sister Emma had been keeping a crucial secret all those years ago, one that only David had inadvertently discovered after marrying into the family. The experimental breeding program hadn't just been about creating intelligent service dogs. It had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations, producing animals with almost human levels of understanding and purpose. The program's crown achievement had been a lineage of dogs bred specifically for water rescue, carrying an inexplicable drive to protect children from drowning. As David stared at the final photo in the album, showing Emma with a litter of puppies, he noticed for the first time a distinctive mark on one pup's ear, the same unique pattern Hero bore on its left ear. The implications made him sink heavily into his chair. As pieces of a 25-year-old puzzle began falling terrifyingly into place, Sarah woke with a start, her heart racing as thunder rolled outside her window. The storm had brought with it the same nightmare that had haunted her for 25 years, Emma's voice calling out over the sound of splashing water. But this time something was different. In the dream, she'd seen Hero standing on the dock, wearing the same leather pouch that Emma's dog had worn the day of the accident. She rushed to Tommy's room, driven by an irrational fear, only to find her son sleeping peacefully with Hero maintaining its vigilant watch. The dog's eyes met hers in the darkness, and for a moment Sarah could have sworn she saw her sister's same determined expression in those intelligent eyes. The leather pouch around Hero's neck caught the dim light, and Sarah's hand instinctively went to her locket, recognizing the similar weathered texture. David sat in his home office, surrounded by printouts of Jessica Chen's published articles about mysterious dog rescues across the country. Each incident followed the same pattern: a child in danger, a brown dog appearing out of nowhere, a successful rescue, and then the dog vanishing without a trace. But what caught his attention were the dates and locations. Forming a deliberate path towards them, He thought back to his conversation with the private investigator he'd hired years ago, who'd discovered disturbing details about Emma's accident. The investigator had mentioned witnessing a strange scene at the lake late one night. A group of dogs, all descendants of the facility's program, gathering as if following some unspoken protocol. The report had seemed too fantastic to believe at the time, but now Tommy crept down the hallway, Hero silently padding beside him. As they made their way to the study, the boy had spent hours examining the contents of the leather pouch he'd found, training tags with dates going back decades, and that mysterious key that seemed to match the one he'd glimpsed in his mother's locket. Hero's behavior had grown increasingly purposeful since the pool incident, as if the rescue had been just the beginning of its mission. The dog would often lead Tommy to specific places in the house, pawing at floorboards or nudging certain books, like it was trying to reveal something. Tonight they were heading to his father's study, where Tommy had noticed Hero's particular interest in a section of the wall behind his father's desk. Covered by an old painting of the lake where his aunt had died, Jessica Chen arrived at the lakeside facility in the middle of the night, her rental car's headlights illuminating the abandoned buildings. The former K9 training center stood like a ghost from the past, its weathered buildings holding secrets that had haunted her research for months. As she approached the main building, she noticed something extraordinary. A group of dogs emerging from the surrounding woods, each bearing the same distinctive features as Hero. They moved with eerily coordinated purpose, gathering around what appeared to be an old storm cellar. The sight confirmed her wildest theories about the facility's experimental program. But nothing could have prepared her for what she found when she followed the dogs to their destination, a hidden room filled with journals, training logs, and most importantly, a manifesto written by Emma Mitchell detailing the true purpose of her life's work. In the Mitchell house, as the storm intensified outside, Sarah finally gathered the courage to open her locket with trembling fingers. The tiny key inside matched perfectly with the one in Hero's pouch. But it was the hidden compartment in the locket that revealed the most shocking truth. Emma's final note, preserved for 25 years, began with words that made Sarah's world spin. "If you're reading this, it means one of them has found you. They are my legacy, sister, bred not just to save lives, but to bring our family back together. The truth about that day at the lake isn't what you think." As Sarah read on, Hero appeared in the doorway, carrying something in its mouth, a weathered journal that would finally reveal the full extent of Emma's incredible secret and the true purpose of her carefully crafted lineage of guardian dogs. Sarah's hands shook as she read Emma's journal, each word forcing her to confront the memories she'd buried for so long. The truth about that day at the lake wasn't a story of tragic accident or childish negligence. It was something far more complex. Emma had discovered that their parents' breeding program had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations, creating dogs with abilities that bordered on the extraordinary. But with that success came unwanted attention from people who saw the dogs as commodities rather than the guardians Emma had envisioned. Her sister had known too much, seen too much, and had made the ultimate sacrifice to protect both Sarah and the dogs she'd helped create. The journal revealed that Emma's drowning had been carefully orchestrated. Allowing her to disappear and continue her work from the shadows, David found Tommy in the study. The old painting of the lake moved aside to reveal a hidden wall safe they'd never known existed. Hero sat between them, its presence somehow bridging the gap between past and present. As Tommy held up the key from the leather pouch, the safe's discovery had triggered a memory in David, a conversation with his father-in-law years ago. Just before the old man's death, he'd mentioned a fail-safe, a way to prove the truth if it ever became necessary. Inside the safe, they found more than just documents. There were photos of Emma taken years after her supposed death, showing her working with dogs at various locations across the country. Each image showed her with a different dog from the program, all bearing the same distinctive markings as Hero. Jessica Chen's investigation at the old facility had yielded surprising connections to the present. The dogs she'd observed weren't strays, but part of an organized network. Each one descended from Emma's original program. They'd been selectively bred and trained not just for water rescue, but to protect children in all kinds of dangerous situations. The manifesto she'd discovered explained how Emma had created a sophisticated underground system, using the dogs to identify families in need of protection or healing. The Mitchells weren't a random target. Hero had been deliberately sent to them, carrying messages and truths that Emma knew would eventually need to surface. As Jessica pieced together the evidence, she began to understand that she wasn't just uncovering a story about remarkable dogs, but about a woman who had sacrificed everything to protect both her human and canine family. Tommy sat on the study floor with Hero, processing the reality that the dog beside him was more than just a random savior. The training tags in the leather pouch told a story of heroic lineage, each one representing a life saved, a family protected, a secret kept. He thought about the nightmares he'd had before Hero's arrival, the ones about the former nanny who'd made him feel so unsafe somehow. The dog had known he needed protection, even before the pool incident. Hero's head suddenly lifted, ears perked toward the window, and Tommy followed its gaze to see a figure standing in the backyard, a woman whose face he recognized from the old photographs. Now aged but unmistakable, Emma had finally come home. Sarah walked slowly toward the back door. Drawn by some invisible force that seemed to pulse between Hero, the journal in her hands, and the familiar silhouette in her garden, 25 years of guilt, fear, and misunderstanding began to dissolve as she realized the true magnitude of her sister's sacrifice and the elaborate plan she'd set in motion. The network of guardian dogs wasn't just about saving lives, it was about healing families, protecting innocence, and bringing long-buried truths into the light. As she reached for the door handle, Sarah finally understood that Hero's rescue of Tommy hadn't been a coincidence at all, but the culmination of a promise made long ago between two sisters by a lake where love had proved stronger than death. Sand loyalty had found its truest expression in the hearts of those bred to protect. The sisters stood facing each other in the Mitchells' kitchen as dawn broke through the storm clouds, 25 years of separation hanging between them like a heavy curtain. Emma looked different, her hair streaked with grey, her face weathered by years of living in the shadows, but her eyes held the same fierce determination Sarah remembered. Hero moved between them, touching each sister with a gentle nudge, as if physically connecting the broken pieces of their family. The dog's presence seemed to dissolve the tension, and when Emma finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of decades of carefully guarded secrets. She explained how she'd spent years building a network of safe houses and training facilities, preparing each generation of dogs for their vital mission of protection and healing. David watched the reunion from the doorway, his corporate mindset struggling to process the implications of what he'd discovered. The training logs he'd found detailed an underground network far more sophisticated than anything he'd imagined. Dozens of specially bred dogs deployed across the country, each one programmed with an inherited instinct to protect children in danger. Emma's work hadn't just created exceptional rescue dogs, she'd somehow managed to breed and train animals that could sense impending threats to children's safety. The leather pouch around Hero's neck contained proof of 15 successful interventions before reaching Tommy, each one documented with the same meticulous care that had characterized the original breeding program. His mind kept returning to the timing of Hero's arrival. Just weeks after they'd discovered their nanny's disturbing behavior, Tommy sat at the kitchen table, Hero's head resting protectively on his lap as he listened to his aunt explain how the dogs were trained. Each puppy underwent intensive preparation, learning not just rescue techniques but also how to recognize signs of abuse, neglect, or danger. Emma revealed that Hero had originally been sent to watch over Tommy after the program detected concerning patterns in the family's dynamics, the prolonged absences, the succession of caretakers, the growing distance between parent and child. The pool incident had merely been the catalyst that brought everything into the open. As Emma spoke, Tommy's hand instinctively tightened in Hero's fur. Remembering the nights when the dog had positioned itself between him and his bedroom door, standing guard against shadows that now had names and explanations, Jessica Chen sat quietly in the corner, her reporter's notebook forgotten in her lap as she witnessed the family's reunion. The story unfolding before her was far more profound than her original theories had suggested. Emma's network wasn't just about saving children from physical danger. It was about healing generational trauma and preventing history from repeating itself. The dogs were conduits for change, their interventions carefully orchestrated to force families to confront their deepest wounds and secrets. Hero's presence had exposed the fault lines in the Mitchell family, but it had also created the opportunity for healing. As she observed Sarah and Emma together, Jessica understood that her role wasn't to expose this story, but to protect it. ensuring that the network could continue its vital work in the shadows. Emma finished her explanation by revealing the full truth about the day she'd disappeared. The lake incident hadn't been an accident or an elaborate escape. It had been a desperate attempt to protect both Sarah and the dogs from people who wanted to exploit the program's breakthroughs. She'd discovered that certain individuals planned to use the dog's exceptional abilities for military applications, turning guardians into weapons. Rather than let that happen, Emma had chosen to vanish, taking the program underground where it could fulfill its true purpose. Hero, she explained, was special even among the guardian dogs, a perfect synthesis of all the traits they'd bred for, and more importantly, the carrier of a genetic legacy that would ensure the program's survival for generations to come. As she spoke these words, Hero lifted its head, eyes moving between the sisters with an awareness that seemed to transcend mere animal intelligence. Carrying the weight of a promise made long ago by a lake, the following days brought profound changes to the Mitchell household. Sarah took a leave of absence from her executive position, finally acknowledging that her workaholic tendencies were rooted in her attempt to outrun the past. She spent long hours with Emma, reconstructing their shared history and learning about the intricate network her sister had built. The most surprising revelation was how Emma had managed to stay connected all these years, through a carefully orchestrated system of loyal veterinarians, former canine handlers, and families whose children had been saved by the guardian dogs. Each person played a small part in maintaining the program's secrecy, creating a web of protection that spanned the entire country. Sarah found herself wondering how many times over the years she had unknowingly crossed paths with people connected to her sister's network. David's transformation was equally dramatic, but took a different form. His investigation into the former nanny's background revealed disturbing patterns that Hero had somehow detected. Long before any human suspicions arose, the dog's protective behavior around Tommy hadn't been random. It had been responding to subtle signs of psychological manipulation that the adults had missed. This realization led David to redirect his corporate expertise toward creating a foundation that would support Emma's network, disguising it as a conventional animal rescue organization, working with Jessica Chen, who had agreed to become the foundation's public face. They began developing a cover story that would protect the program while allowing it to expand its reach. The irony wasn't lost on David that his skills at corporate restructuring would now serve to protect the very secrets he'd once tried to uncover. Tommy flourished under the combined attention of his parents and his newfound aunt. The nightmares that had plagued him began to fade as he learned the truth about Hero's presence in his life. Emma spent time teaching him about the guardian dog's training, explaining how their unique abilities were passed down through carefully maintained bloodlines. The boy showed a natural affinity for working with the dogs, displaying the same intuitive understanding that had marked Emma's early work with the program. Hero remained constantly by Tommy's side, but its role had evolved from protector to teacher, guiding the boy's first steps into a world where the boundary between human and canine intelligence blurred in extraordinary ways. During these lessons, Emma would sometimes pause, watching Tommy with Hero, her eyes reflecting a mixture of pride and nostalgia. Jessica's article about the pool rescue was carefully crafted to protect the program's secrets while satisfying public curiosity. She wrote about a remarkable stray dog saving a child, letting the story serve as cover for the network's continued operations. Behind the scenes, she worked with Emma to document the program's history and methodology, ensuring that its techniques and breeding records would be preserved for future generations. The reporter found herself drawn deeper into the network's mission, discovering that her investigative skills could serve a greater purpose than just breaking news stories. She began identifying patterns of children at risk, helping Emma deploy guardian dogs where they were needed most. The work gave her reporting career new meaning, even if the most important stories she uncovered would never see print. Emma's return to her family came with both joy and responsibility. While she could never fully emerge from hiding, she established a secure residence nearby, creating a new training facility disguised as a rural sanctuary for retired service dogs. The property became a gathering place for the Mitchell family, where the boundaries between past and present, human and canine, seemed to dissolve in the mountain air. Hero's unique status in the program became clearer as Emma revealed her plans for the future. The dog carried genetic traits that represented the peak of their breeding program, making its puppies crucial to the network's continuation. As if understanding its role, Hero maintained a perfect balance between family companion and working dog, demonstrating daily why Emma had chosen this particular guardian to heal the wounds in her own family, while ensuring the program's future. The autumn wind scattered leaves across the Mitchells' backyard as Sarah watched Tommy and Hero working with Emma on basic training exercises. The transformation in her son was remarkable. Gone was the withdrawn, anxious child of months past, replaced by a confident boy who moved with purpose and understanding. Emma had started teaching him the fundamentals of the Guardian Dog program, beginning with the simple commands that formed the foundation of their more complex capabilities. Today's lesson focused on water rescue techniques, and Sarah found herself able to watch without the usual panic gripping her chest. Hero demonstrated each maneuver with precision, while Tommy absorbed every detail with the kind of focused attention he'd never shown in school. The sight of them together helped Sarah understand why Emma had chosen this particular dog to bridge the gaps in their family. David's corporate office had undergone a subtle but significant transformation. Behind the usual displays of achievements and acquisitions, a new map hung on his wall, marked with tiny dots representing the Guardian Dog's locations across the country. He'd thrown himself into supporting Emma's network with the same intensity he'd once devoted to hostile takeovers. Finding that his business acumen served surprisingly well in protecting and expanding the program, weekly reports now included coded updates about successful interventions and new deployments. Disguised as routine business metrics, his assistant, carefully chosen by Emma, was one of the many silent partners in their growing network, coordinating with other corporate allies who provided cover for the program's operations. The irony wasn't lost on him that his greatest business achievement would be one he could never add to his resume. Jessica Chen's career took an unexpected turn as she balanced her public role as a journalist with her private involvement in the Guardian Dog Network. Her articles about child safety and animal rescue served as carefully crafted smokescreens, hiding the deeper truth while allowing her to maintain contact with families who might need help. She'd developed a particular skill for identifying potential crisis situations. Working with Emma to deploy guardian dogs preemptively, the network's expansion required constant vigilance, and Jessica found herself traveling frequently, ostensibly covering human interest stories while actually establishing new safe houses and training locations. Her press credentials provided perfect cover for the network's operations, allowing her to move freely between cities. Without raising suspicion, Emma's new facility began taking shape on the outskirts of town. Its perimeter marked by sophisticated security systems disguised as ordinary farm equipment. The converted barn housed state-of-the-art training areas, while underground facilities contained the program's most vital records and research. Hero's first litter of puppies was due in the spring, and Emma spent hours reviewing genetic data, ensuring that each pup would carry the crucial traits that made their parents so exceptional. The program's future depended on maintaining the delicate balance of intelligence, instinct and loyalty that characterized their guardian dogs. Emma watched Hero working with Tommy, seeing in their interaction the proof that her life's work had evolved beyond mere breeding and training into something far more meaningful, the creation of bonds that could heal broken families and protect vulnerable children. Tommy's relationship with Hero deepened in ways that surprised even Emma. The dog seemed to anticipate the boy's needs before he expressed them, maintaining a protective presence that never felt intrusive. During training sessions, they developed an almost telepathic connection, moving together with fluid grace that made complex maneuvers look effortless. But it was in the quiet moments that their bond showed its true depth. When Hero would guide Tommy away from situations that triggered anxiety, or when the dog would position itself between the boy and unfamiliar adults until their intentions became clear. These subtle behaviors demonstrated why Hero had been chosen for this crucial role, carrying not just the genetic future of the program, but also its heart and purpose. The dog had become more than a guardian. It was a bridge between past and future, helping the Mitchells rebuild while ensuring that Emma's legacy would continue through the next generation. Winter descended on the Mitchell property, bringing with it new challenges and unexpected developments. Hero's impending role as a parent brought changes to the dog's behavior, a deeper watchfulness, an even more pronounced protective instinct. Emma spent more time at the main house, monitoring Hero's condition while continuing Tommy's education in the program. The boy had shown such aptitude for working with the dogs that Emma began sharing more advanced aspects of their training, teaching him to recognize the subtle signs that indicated a dog's awareness of potential threats. Sarah watched these lessons with a mixture of pride and concern, remembering her own childhood training sessions by the lake. The parallel wasn't lost on her. Another generation of Mitchells being drawn into the program's mission, but this time with the wisdom of past mistakes to guide them. David's foundation had begun attracting attention from unexpected quarters. A group of influential investors, drawn by the public story of animal rescue and rehabilitation, started asking questions that came uncomfortably close to revealing the program's true nature. Hero's behavior during a crucial meeting signaled potential threats. The dog positioned itself strategically near Tommy when certain investors were present, displaying subtle warning signs that Emma had taught them to recognize. The incident forced the family to refine their cover story, leading David to develop an elaborate business plan that would satisfy curiosity while protecting their secrets. Jessica's media contacts proved invaluable, helping craft a public narrative that would direct attention away from the program's more unusual aspects. The challenge lay in maintaining transparency where possible while guarding the deeper truth about their guardian dog's capabilities. The network's expansion brought its own set of complications. Emma's careful breeding program had produced a new generation of guardian dogs, each requiring placement in strategic locations across the country. The logistics of moving and positioning these dogs without drawing attention became increasingly complex. Hero's upcoming litter would be especially crucial. Genetic testing had confirmed that these puppies would carry the strongest combination of desired traits seen in decades. The pressure to protect this bloodline while maintaining the program's secrecy weighed heavily on Emma. She found herself spending long hours in the facility's research section, analyzing data from previous generations and fine-tuning her breeding protocols. The future of their mission depended on successfully preserving and enhancing the unique characteristics that made dogs like Hero possible. Tommy's increasing involvement in the program brought unexpected revelations. During training sessions, he began noticing patterns in Hero's behavior that even Emma hadn't documented. Subtle variations in the dog's protective responses based on the specific nature of perceived threats. These observations led to breakthroughs in understanding how the guardian dogs processed and responded to potential dangers. Emma started incorporating Tommy's insights into the training protocols, recognizing that his natural affinity for the dogs offered a fresh perspective on their capabilities. The boy's bond with Hero had evolved into a partnership that demonstrated the full potential of human-canine collaboration. Setting new standards for the program's future development, their synchronized movements during training exercises became a testament to what Emma had always envisioned, a perfect synthesis of human insight and canine instinct. The approach of spring brought heightened anticipation to the Mitchell household. Hero's pregnancy progressed normally, but the dog's protective instincts extended beyond its own condition during a late-night security check of the property. Hero alerted to an intruder, not a physical presence, but an attempted breach of their computer systems. The dog's reaction, seemingly impossible to explain by conventional understanding of canine behavior, forced Emma to confront the full implications of their breeding program's success. The guardian dogs hadn't just developed enhanced protective instincts, they'd evolved an almost supernatural ability to sense threats in all their forms. As Hero lay in the specially prepared whelping area, Emma shared a significant look with Sarah. The next generation of guardian dogs wouldn't just inherit their parents' physical traits, they would carry forward an evolutionary leap in protective capabilities that even Emma hadn't fully anticipated. The birth of Hero's puppies occurred during a stormy spring night, an event that seemed to mirror the momentous nature of the occasion. Emma and Tommy stayed awake through the entire process, while Sarah and David maintained a watchful presence nearby. 8 puppies arrived, each bearing the distinctive markings that indicated they carried the program's crucial genetic traits. Hero demonstrated remarkable awareness throughout the birthing process, positioning each pup precisely and maintaining constant communication with Emma through subtle gestures they'd developed over months of preparation. The significance of this litter went beyond mere numbers. These puppies represented the culmination of decades of careful breeding, each one carrying the potential to expand the network's protective reach in ways Emma had only dreamed possible. As the family watched the new mother tend to her offspring, they understood they were witnessing not just a birth, but the dawn of a new chapter in the Guardian program. Jessica's investigation into the recent cyber attack revealed disturbing connections to their past. The intrusion attempt had targeted specific files related to the original breeding program, suggesting someone had discovered links between the old facility and the Mitchell's current operation. Hero's extraordinary reaction to the digital threat had caught everyone's attention, leading Emma to conduct a series of controlled tests that confirmed what they'd suspected. The Guardian dogs possessed an evolved sensitivity to danger that transcended physical threats. This discovery both thrilled and terrified Emma, who recognized that such capabilities would make the program even harder to keep secret. She spent hours updating the security protocols, while Hero kept silent vigil over both her puppies and the facility's perimeter. Displaying a level of situational awareness that bordered on prescience, Tommy's role in the program expanded as he helped socialize the puppies, his natural ability to read their behaviors proving invaluable to Emma's training protocols. Each pup showed early signs of the advanced traits they'd bred for, but one in particular, a female with striking blue eyes, demonstrated capabilities that exceeded even Hero's benchmarks. The boy named her Legacy, recognizing her significance to the program's future. During training sessions, Legacy displayed an uncanny ability to anticipate needs and respond to situations before they fully developed, much like her mother, but with even greater precision. Emma watched their interactions closely, documenting behaviors that would help refine the program's breeding and training methods for future generations. The bond forming between Tommy and Legacy paralleled his connection with Hero, suggesting that the program's success relied not just on genetics, but on the unique partnership between human and canine guardians. David's corporate expertise faced its greatest challenge as interest in their foundation grew. A powerful technology company had begun asking pointed questions about their breeding program, offering substantial funding in exchange for access to their methods. The proposal seemed innocent enough on the surface, but Hero's reaction to the company representatives, a subtle but unmistakable warning posture, confirmed their suspicions about ulterior motives. Sarah discovered through her own business contacts that the company had links to military contractors. Echoing the threats that had forced Emma into hiding years ago, the family needed to find a way to deflect this attention without raising suspicion, leading David to orchestrate a complex series of business maneuvers designed to make the foundation appear less attractive to outside investors, while maintaining its effectiveness as a cover for their real operations. The full scope of what they'd achieved with the Guardian program became clear one quiet evening as Emma reviewed the data from the puppy's first month of development. Hero lay nearby, surrounded by her sleeping litter. While Legacy remained alert and engaged with the human's activity, the genetic markers they'd carefully cultivated had produced more than just exceptional rescue dogs. They'd created guardians capable of processing and responding to threats on multiple levels. From physical danger to digital intrusion, this evolutionary leap brought both promise and peril, as the puppy's enhanced capabilities would make them more effective protectors, but also more difficult to explain to the outside world. Emma shared a knowing look with her sister, both understanding that their family's commitment to the program would face even greater tests as these remarkable animals matured and their true potential emerged. The summer heat brought with it mounting pressure, as David noticed increased surveillance around the property. Security cameras caught unmarked vehicles passing by with suspicious frequency, and Hero's behavior became increasingly alert. Especially when Legacy and the other puppies were outdoors, the technology company that had shown interest in their foundation had begun making more aggressive moves, acquiring smaller animal training facilities in the region and hiring specialists with backgrounds in genetic research. Emma recognized the pattern. It was similar to the corporate maneuvering that had threatened the original program decades ago. During their evening security briefings, the family gathered in David's study, with Hero and Legacy positioning themselves near the windows, their synchronized movements suggesting they were responding to threats beyond human perception. The time had come to implement contingency plans they'd hoped never to need. Sarah's executive experience proved crucial, as she helped construct a sophisticated misdirection strategy. Working with trusted contacts in the business world, she began spreading carefully crafted rumors about failed breeding experiments and disappointing results in their foundation's research division, Jessica supported these efforts through strategic media placements, publishing articles that subtly undermined the perceived value of their work while maintaining the foundation's public image as a conventional rescue organization. Meanwhile, beneath this orchestrated facade of mediocrity, Emma accelerated the puppy's training. Legacy, in particular, showed remarkable progress, demonstrating an ability to process and respond to complex scenarios that even Hero hadn't mastered until full maturity. The young dog's capabilities confirmed Emma's theories about evolutionary advancement within their breeding program, but also increased the urgency of protecting their secrets. Tommy's involvement in the program deepened as he worked with Legacy and her siblings, his natural ability to understand and guide their development becoming increasingly valuable to their operation. He noticed subtle patterns in the puppy's behavior that helped Emma refine her training protocols, the way they communicated with each other during exercises, their coordinated responses to potential threats, and most importantly, their ability to distinguish between genuine danger and benign situations. This last trait had been crucial in maintaining their cover. As the puppies learned to modulate their protective responses based on the actual level of threat present, the boys' insights led to breakthrough moments in their training, though each success meant another capability they needed to carefully conceal from the outside world. Legacy seemed to understand this need for discretion, often deliberately underperforming when strangers were present. The technology company's persistence forced David to make difficult decisions about the Foundation's future. After consulting with Emma, he initiated a complex restructuring that would make their operation appear less centralized and therefore less attractive for acquisition. Hero's reactions to various business visitors helped them identify which individuals posed genuine threats to their security, allowing David to adjust his strategy accordingly. During one particularly tense meeting, both Hero and Legacy positioned themselves strategically around the conference room, their synchronized movements creating an invisible barrier between the visitors and access to sensitive areas of the facility. The display of coordinated protection validated Emma's breeding program, while simultaneously increasing the risk of discovery. The dog's behavior was simply too precise to be explained by conventional training methods. Emma spent late nights in her research facility, monitoring the puppy's development while updating their contingency plans. The genetic markers in Legacy's bloodline had exceeded all expectations, producing capabilities that even Emma struggled to fully understand. The young dog demonstrated an almost prescient ability to anticipate threats, often alerting to danger before any observable signs were present. This evolution in their protective abilities represented both the program's greatest achievement and its most significant vulnerability. How could they continue to develop these extraordinary guardians while maintaining the secrecy essential to their survival? As she reviewed security footage of Legacy coordinating with her siblings during a training exercise, Emma realized they'd reached a crucial turning point. The next phase of their program would require more than just physical security and corporate camouflage. It would demand a fundamental shift in how they operated, trained and protected their extraordinary charges. The autumn leaves were turning when Emma made a startling discovery in Legacy's genetic analysis. The puppy's DNA showed an unprecedented integration of the guardian traits, suggesting an evolutionary leap that even the most optimistic projections hadn't anticipated. During training sessions, Legacy demonstrated an ability to process and respond to complex scenarios with almost human-like comprehension, while maintaining the pure instinctual protective drive that characterized the Guardian bloodline. Hero watched these developments with evident pride, working alongside her daughter to demonstrate increasingly sophisticated protection protocols. The synchronization between mother and daughter created a layered defense system that proved invaluable as external pressures mounted. Emma spent sleepless nights documenting these advances while grappling with their implications. They had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, but at what cost to their security? David's corporate shield began showing cracks. As the technology company's investigation intensified, their competitors had hired a renowned animal behaviorist who started publishing papers about advanced canine cognitive development. With theories that came uncomfortably close to describing the guardian dog's actual capabilities, the threat escalated when the behaviorist requested a tour of their facility, citing potential research collaboration. During the inevitable visit, Hero and Legacy executed a masterful performance of appearing purely conventional, almost too conventional. The behaviorist's suspicious glances and probing questions suggested they hadn't entirely succeeded in masking their dog's exceptional nature. That evening, as the family gathered for an emergency meeting, Sarah noticed both dogs positioning themselves near access points throughout the house, implementing security protocols they'd never formally been taught. Tommy's role proved crucial during this period of heightened scrutiny. His natural ability to communicate with the dogs helped maintain their cover during public demonstrations, while his keen observations led to important refinements in their protective strategies. Working with Legacy, he developed a system of subtle signals that allowed the dogs to modulate their responses based on the level of threat present. This breakthrough helped them appear more conventional during inspections, while maintaining their extraordinary protective capabilities when needed. The boys' unique connection with Legacy deepened as they worked together, their partnership exemplifying the perfect balance between human insight and canine instinct that Emma had always envisioned for the program. Jessica's investigative skills uncovered a disturbing pattern of corporate espionage targeting their operation. The technology company had successfully infiltrated several similar facilities across the country. Acquiring and dismantling them for research purposes, their methods were ruthlessly efficient, using a combination of financial pressure and legal maneuvering to force compliance, as she shared her findings with the family. Hero and Legacy's behavior confirmed their worst fears. Both dogs had been exhibiting increasingly urgent warning signs about potential threats to their security. The time for subtle maneuvering had passed. They needed to take decisive action to protect the program's future. Emma's contingency plans, years in the making, would finally be put to the test. The breaking point came during a seemingly routine evening at the facility. Legacy suddenly alerted to an imminent threat, her behavior triggering an immediate response from Hero and the other adult guardian dogs. Within minutes, their security systems detected a sophisticated cyber attack attempting to breach their databases. While surveillance cameras caught glimpses of unauthorized vehicles approaching from multiple directions, the coordinated nature of the assault confirmed their worst fears. Someone had pieced together enough information to attempt a takeover of their operation. As alarms sounded throughout the facility, Emma shared a knowing look with Sarah. The protocols they'd established for this scenario would change everything, but preserving the Guardian program had always been worth any sacrifice. With Hero and Legacy leading the response, the Mitchell family prepared to execute a plan that would protect their legacy while fundamentally transforming their mission. The tension in the facility reached its peak as Emma initiated emergency protocols that had been decades in the making. Security feeds showed multiple teams attempting to breach their perimeter, while their cyber defenses fought off increasingly sophisticated attacks. Hero and Legacy coordinated the response of the Guardian dogs with extraordinary precision, positioning themselves and the other dogs in a defensive formation that protected both the puppies and critical areas of the facility. The technology company's forces had clearly studied their security measures, but they hadn't accounted for the dogs' evolved capabilities. As Sarah watched the security feeds, she saw something remarkable. The Guardian dogs were adapting their tactics in real time, responding to threats in ways that transcended their training. This wasn't just learned behavior, it was strategic thinking. David's corporate experience proved invaluable as he executed the legal countermeasures they'd prepared through a series of complex financial maneuvers. He began transferring control of their assets to a network of trusted allies, families whose children had been saved by Guardian dogs over the years. Each transfer was carefully structured to appear as a routine business transaction, while actually forming parts of a larger protective web. The technology company's legal team would find themselves tangled in a maze of international regulations and overlapping jurisdictions, buying precious time for the program to evolve beyond their reach. As he worked, Tommy and Legacy maintained a protective vigil, the young dog's presence serving as a constant reminder of what they were fighting to preserve. Emma's research facility transformed under the pressure of immediate threat, revealing hidden capabilities that even Sarah hadn't known existed. Sections of the building reconfigured themselves, vital equipment disappeared into concealed spaces, and years of research were transmitted to secure locations across the globe. Hero supervised the evacuation of the puppies through underground passages that connected to their backup facility, While Legacy remained with the family, coordinating the defensive effort, the young dog's performance confirmed Emma's most ambitious theories about their breeding program. They hadn't just created better guardian dogs, they'd developed partners capable of participating in complex strategic operations. Jessica, monitoring communications from her mobile command center, provided real-time updates about the corporate forces gathering outside. Her years of investigative work helping them stay one step ahead. Tommy worked alongside Legacy with a maturity that belied his years, helping to coordinate the evacuation of their most sensitive materials. The bond between boy and dog had evolved into something that transcended traditional human-animal relationships. They moved with synchronized purpose, anticipating each other's needs without verbal communication. When Legacy suddenly altered their planned route through the facility, Tommy trusted her judgment without hesitation. The detour led them to discover an infiltration team attempting to access their secure archives through a maintenance tunnel. Legacy's warning gave them crucial seconds to trigger containment protocols, protecting vital information about the Guardian program's genetic breakthroughs. The incident proved that their enemies had deeper intelligence about their operation than they'd feared, making their evacuation even more urgent. Through the chaos of evacuation and defense, Sarah observed Hero and Legacy working in perfect harmony, mother and daughter representing the past and future of their program. The older dog's experience complemented the younger's enhanced capabilities, creating a protective framework that seemed almost impenetrable as the final phase of their evacuation plan commenced. Emma shared a revelation that changed everything. The Guardian dog's recent evolutionary leaps weren't random mutations, but rather the emergence of traits they'd engineered decades ago, now fully expressed in Legacy's generation. This development meant their program had reached a crucial threshold, one that would require fundamental changes in how they operated. The technology company's attack, while dangerous, had forced them to implement these changes sooner rather than later. As the family gathered in their designated safe room, surrounded by their guardian protectors, Emma began outlining a vision for the program's future that would ensure its survival while transforming its very nature. 1 year after the attack, the Mitchell family gathered at their new facility, nestled in a remote mountain valley that offered both security and sanctuary. The technology company's aggressive takeover attempt had ultimately failed, their corporate raid thwarted by a combination of legal complexity, public relations nightmares, and the inexplicable disappearance of all meaningful research data. David's elaborate financial shell game had transformed their operation into something virtually untouchable, a decentralized network of animal sanctuaries, each protecting a piece of their program while appearing entirely conventional to outside observers. The original facility now served as a perfectly ordinary rescue center, its true purpose hidden beneath layers of carefully crafted normalcy. Even now, Hero patrolled its grounds, maintaining a watchful presence that deterred unwanted attention. Legacy had matured into everything Emma had envisioned, and more, leading a new generation of guardian dogs whose capabilities redefined their understanding of the program's potential. The puppies she'd helped protect during the evacuation were now in training, their enhanced traits carefully hidden behind the guise of standard service dog preparation. Sarah managed their public image with practiced skill, presenting a heartwarming story of rescue and rehabilitation that satisfied media interest while obscuring their true mission. The network of families they protected had grown, each success carefully documented in Emma's ever-expanding research database. These families never knew the full scope of the program that had saved them. They simply knew that their lives had been touched by extraordinary dogs who appeared exactly when needed. Tommy's partnership with Legacy had evolved into something that even Emma struggled to fully comprehend. They worked together at the new training facility, developing protocols that would help future generations of guardians balance their enhanced capabilities with the need for discretion. The boy's natural ability to understand and guide the dogs had matured into genuine expertise, suggesting a future role that would ensure the program's continuation. Jessica, now officially part of their organization, had successfully woven a protective narrative around their work, her journalistic talents serving to deflect attention while subtly reinforcing the image of conventional rescue operations. Her network of media contacts proved invaluable in maintaining their cover, allowing the Guardian program to operate in plain sight. The most significant change came in how they managed the Guardian dog's remarkable abilities. Rather than fighting to conceal their evolved traits, Emma had restructured the program to present them as happy accidents of careful breeding. Exceptional but not impossible, this approach, suggested by Legacy's uncanny ability to modulate her apparent capabilities based on her audience, allowed them to operate more openly while still protecting their core secrets. Hero's bloodline had produced dozens of new guardians, each carrying the genetic markers that enabled their extraordinary protective abilities. These dogs were strategically placed throughout their network, their presence ensuring that the program could survive any future attempts to shut it down. The technology company's attack had ultimately strengthened them, forcing innovations that made their operation more resilient as the family watched the sunset from their mountain sanctuary. Surrounded by the next generation of guardian dogs, Emma shared her final insights about the program's future. The bond between humans and these extraordinary animals represented more than just an advanced breeding program. It was a partnership that had evolved to meet the changing needs of a world where threats to children and families took increasingly sophisticated forms. Legacy rested her head on Tommy's lap, while Hero maintained her vigilant watch, both dogs embodying the perfect synthesis of instinct and intelligence that had always been the program's ultimate goal. Sarah touched her locket, no longer a reminder of past tragedies, but a symbol of how love and dedication could transform loss into legacy. The Mitchell family had not just survived, they had fulfilled Emma's original vision, creating a network of protection that would continue to evolve and adapt, guided by the extraordinary dogs who had become their partners in safeguarding the vulnerable as night fell over the valley. The sound of puppies training in the distance carried the promise of new beginnings and the continuation of their vital mission.